Hi, my name is Hamza Zahid. I'm making this video for my presentation. In my presentation, I'm going to be including two of the tools that are required for me to do the project that I have to do. So I've chosen the LSOF and IOTalk tools for my presentation. So I'm going to continue now and tell you guys about what the tools do and how can we use those tools. Yep. So now I'm going to be explaining the tools that I've chosen. The first tool that I've chosen is the LSOF. So firstly, I've previously installed the LSOF tool, but usually you don't have to install the LSOF tool. But if you don't have the packages, so how we used to install is that we use this command that we use in the lab as well. It's sudo, that's the application, it's for getting the package and install the LSOF. I've actually installed it, so I'm not going to run it. So this is the command that you usually use. I'm just going to show you that I've installed LSOF. These are the files that when you run the LSOF command, it shows you that. So the first function that I've chosen for the LSOF command is listing all the network connections. The following command that I'm going to enter is it shows all the list of all network connections that are listening and established. So for that, I'm going to use, it's gonna be LSOF and I. So it's gonna show that at the moment I'm using the user root, this over here. So it is showing that the user root and the network connection that it's using. So, and there is this another command that I've chosen for this LSOF, and that is it lets you list the user specific open files, like the root user, which files has the user open. So for that command, I'm gonna have to use LSOF. Yes, like my user at the moment is root. So for what specific files I've opened in the moment, just to check that, I'm gonna use this. So these are the files that my root users has opened. So this is a very useful tool for system administrator, as whenever he or she wants to check which are the network connections that are available in server or any kind of organization she is in. So it's a very useful tool for that. And the second command that I used for user specific open files, that's a very useful tool as well for a system administrator to check which sort of files a specific user has opened. So that's done with the LSOF one. Now we're going to come to the IOTop. Just to install IOTop, it's the same as sudo apt get. This is the command that we learned from the lab manual, so it's not that something difficult. So what we have to do is install IOTop. I was having a bit problem with installing this IOTop, so you have to run a command before this. So if you have that kind of problem, you just have to Google it and it's going to be solved. So that's how you install IOTop. I'm just going to show you that when you hit IOTop, you're going to see the files. IOTop is basically, it's an open source and free utilities similar to the top command that we use in the lab. And what it actually does is it provides an easy way to monitor Linux disk input-output user details, and it actually prints the table of existing I/O processes by threads or the systems. So it is a very useful tool based on it is actually based on Python programming, and it requires the kernel to monitor and display processes. And it is also a very useful tool for a system administrator. It lets him to he or she, whatever the person is using the tool, to trace the specific process that may cause a high disk I/O read write. It is usually used by the system administrator to check how much load is on the server and how much threads or processes or things are being used by the users. So it's a very useful tool for that. So the functions that I've chosen for this IOTop is, the first is the performance check, and the second one is that it checks the current process's IOs. So I'm just gonna do the performance check, And for that, you can use IOTop, and we have to use it in batch mode. And we can also use this in batch mode so that we can make use of the displayed output in scripts or reporting purposes. So the command for that is gonna be, it's gonna be this. So it's gonna show me the number of iterations and all the performance that's going on at the moment. So as you can see that this user has read the disk, he's reading the disk, and he's written this on the disk. So that's the performance check. And the second one is checking the current processes, that which input and output processes are currently running. So for that, I can use IOTop. When we usually use IOTop, it's when I hit enter, it's going to display all the processes that are running at the moment. So if you want to check what sort of processes are specifically run by the user, you have to use IOTop only. So it's going to tell you the processes that are run by the current user. So my user is root, so it's going to tell me that at the moment I'm not using any processes, so it's not going to display anything. It's just saying that it's showing the speed, bits per second, and stuff like that. So it's a very useful tool yet again for the system administrators to see what's putting the load on the server, and he or she can check if there's any lag on the system, and by this he can remove that lag with. So this was pretty much something that I searched for. And in conclusion, IOTop, when we talk about IOTop is actually used to check how much disk usage is being used by the processes. So it's actually a pretty good tool for the system administrator to check how much disk is being used by the processes. And he or she could manage or check where there is a lag, and he or she can check where to, reduce the system load. So when we talk about LSOF is used to check what processes are being used by the users, what sort of processes they're accessing, and files as well. So this is something that a system administrator could use to check if a user is accessing a non-authorized file. So he or she has to take certain measures so that users cannot operate that.